Hello everyone, it's DK from DKlarations. I just wanted to give you a nice quick welcome to the Declarable podcast. These two guys that I'm on the podcast with, Paul and Joel, man, just two of the great friends in my life, and two guys that I absolutely love having conversations with. And I really think you guys are going to enjoy them. So we're going to call this episode 0 because the audio quality kind of left me wanting a little bit, but it will be remedied in the coming episodes. And with that, enjoy the show.
Maybe start with who the heck we are.
No, I'm going to get that in the pre-roll.
Oh, okay.
You're fine, yeah.
All right.
I tweeted out about subjects that we could do. And from Garrett, DK is doing a podcast. Kelly said yes.
Is she a parcel tongue?
She is.
Your followers seem to use a lot of extra letters that aren't necessary.
If we don't at least mention Doctor Who, I will be very sad.
Doctor Who.
TARDIS, Cybermen, hooray.
As you're wearing a TARDIS sweatshirt, you're pretending you're not a fan.
Okay,
yes.
Here's a great one. Anything? There's more extra letters. D&D, Magic the Gathering, Power Rangers, GOTY stuff, the corruption of the American government, all caps, Obamacare. So pick one.
Oh, I thought that was the whole subject.
I'm a little torn between Power Rangers and Obamacare.
I'm actually disappointed that Kony 2012 isn't on that list.
The thing that people cared about for like 3 weeks and then just forgot.
Yeah, I don't think we've gotten him yet, but that Facebook campaign was amazing.
It was so close.
It really was. And then the ones afterwards where it had the picture that said, like to stop a warlord or whatever.
Oh my god.
Yeah, but then Lindsay Lohan did something crazy and we got distracted. Or more appropriately, the guy who put up the video did something crazy and went, he's running around naked.
Isn't that like insane though? Like how that became such a part of the sort of general zeitgeist and then just went away. And then because you haven't heard anything about it.
What, half-assed activism?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that has always been a thing. Like, but I mean, like, it's become more and more prevalent with social media, I think.
That we get really up in arms about something and then we kind of move on to something else. Someone made it.
Yeah, like it's people's. Kony 2012. Hey, look at this thing. Everyone's like, "Oh, I can't believe how terrible a person he is." And then a month later, it's the next thing for people to be irritated by.
Well, I mean, it's nothing really new. I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of just an exaggeration of stuff that's always happened in the past. I mean, stuff would occur and we'd get really engaged about it and then something else would come along. But we live in a very small, even more compressed world that 24-hour news cycles aren't 24 hours anymore. They're 12 hours at best, if you're lucky, because you only have, 6 hours of content and you run out and so loop it. But we just are easily distracted by cat videos.
But at the same time, you have people that you wouldn't have ever expected to have any idea where on the map Uganda is, and they can name a warlord from Uganda.
You said Uganda and Uganda.
I know. I think it's
He's
Uganda.
playing to both the tomato and tomato audiences. So.
Yeah, that's right. Take that, internet.
And that's fair to say. But, I mean, how beneficial is that really if it doesn't actually do anything? I mean, it's great that people who would otherwise not be exposed to these things are then exposed, but if they're just, like, if we're constantly exposing people to these things that should outrage them, outrage becomes like a general state of being where it's no longer an outrage, it's just like flatline.
That's where we're at in America.
Yeah.
Outrage. People are outraged every day over the most inane things. And everything is at 11 now. There's no longer a 9 or a 7 or a 2 level of outrage.
Yeah.
And Spinal Tap is happy for that.
That's right.
Is that,
But, I mean, it does tie into that idea of half-informed, half-assed activism is that, oh, I'm really pissed off because I saw this documentary or I saw this YouTube clip. I mean, how many hashtag blackfish are floating out there because of the documentary? It's the SeaWorld, or it's not a documentary about SeaWorld.
I haven't actually seen it yet.
Yeah, I haven't either.
I just heard about it.
You know, you just see that floating around everywhere, and then before then it was...
I heard about it from activist friends of mine.
Of course.
But from people who actually legitimately do make a difference. But yeah, no, that's very funny.
So, with that being said, the idea of almost having like some of them being hoaxes and some of them not, where do you go to find information that you know hasn't been tampered with in some way? Like, at what point... I've been thinking about this a little bit with libraries. Mm-hmm. Eventually, there probably won't be the library as we know it, being the age we are, with lots of dusty books and jackets and the whole checkout system. But is that facility a check against something like what happened with the Wikipedia articles? And I forget which president was being edited, but there was a report that there was a group that was editing the Wikipedia page of one of the presidents to try to match something that a candidate had said, whether that's true or not. But they were going in and changing things that had been accepted as fact. And it was a back and forth battle, and eventually they locked the page, so there was no more edits. But at some point, do people, if the libraries still stand as the way they are, do people actually go in and take out those books, change the material in them, and then put them back? Because isn't that the last check we have against the Wikipedia type of example happening in real life? When you have the physical copy, and you can say, this book has been in this facility since 1942.
Okay.
It hasn't changed. This is exactly what was told back then. Yeah. This is the information. Do we risk losing that by going all digital?
Oh, I understand what you're saying.
So
the idea being that digital media is malleable.
Yeah.
Certain formats are, and I think should be. And this phrase, contemporary history, contradiction in terms, really, but that is always susceptible to being changed and tweaked and everything else. It's the kind of the same question that is in literary studies. What becomes canon? How do you decide that? What falls under the capital L of literature, sort of thing? And as much as I want to fall into and embrace that idea of, as soon as it is printed on paper and bound in some sort of fashion in between two covers, and it's on a shelf somewhere, that becomes the definitive source of information for that particular topic or that particular viewpoint from that author or sets of authors, editor, whatever. I think that I want to believe in that, but at the same time, everybody has their biases, and it's like, how much can you buy into that versus a Wikipedia page? Granted, I would never say Wikipedia is the
source of truth,
right? And would certainly not tell people, oh yeah, you can use those in essays and you'll be fine. No, but there's also, you just have to do your due diligence with whatever information you're looking for. You just can't take something as face value. Consider your sources. Do the work yourself. Just don't sit there and go, oh, I watched this video and yeah, that guy's a bad guy. That part doesn't work. If you want to sit there and, in between waiting for whatever GIF to load, and you're watching the Kony 2012, for instance, and you get some sort of mild outrage, but really could just be indigestion, and you just, if you're pissed off about something, be learned about what you're pissed off at.
I guess the alternative is that they just go by it and they do nothing. and I'm not sure which is worse.
Yeah.
Passive interaction by clicking a like button or commenting on something, and then just letting it go and figuring out that, well, somebody else will take care of this. Or just skipping it altogether. What's really the difference? Maybe you escalate it and somebody else sees it that will do something about it. Or, it can impact, because eventually they didn't the Obama administration? Some sort of assistance was given to try to track this person or try to, the old advisors, in quotation marks, those kind of things. But I thought that there was some sort of response from the federal level, at the very least, for that. But I want to go back to what you said before about the biases with that. So one of the things that I was taught in college is you read the first part of the book, everything before word 1 of chapter 1, and you devote a third of the time of your book to that. So you know the biases. You know where the book was printed, what company printed it, when they printed it. So you can actually create a picture of, okay, so I know that this publisher was owned by a liberal family, and in the 1940s, they had to do this. So you can kind of maybe look and see where edits may have been taken, but you have no idea when it's got some guy named like 7Tiger41 on Wikipedia. You have no idea who he is, why he did it. You maybe can look at the other edits that he's done, or to try to see the kind of trail, but
you can't sort of research perspective like you would have been able to with printed media.
Yeah, and it goes so fast. It just, the edits can go back and forth, and if the Google project, if I don't know if they're still doing the book scanning or if that was kind of pushed aside. But the whole idea of scanning those books, if they can scan them...
Like Google Scholar, or what do you mean?
I think they're still kind of working on that.
Yeah, well, they were trying to just scan... I don't know if it was libraries of books, but like every book.
Like just every book?
Library of Alexandria type stuff.
Oh, Library of Alexandria.
And if you could get it in that format, is it truly a replacement? Because, how secure is it? How easy would it be for somebody to go in and change, a page? And if you just change a slight thing on the page, how do you track it?
Yeah.
It's an interesting...
Well, you're talking about doctoring scans and all that sort of stuff, and I know it's easy to manipulate PDF images and that sort of thing, but if you're going to take the effort to do that, well, good Lord, bravo to you for spreading your tweaked propaganda.
But is it though? Because then if that becomes a resource that's used regularly, we remember going to the library, you get the Reader's Guide to Periodical Literature, you go look it up, you go get the thing, card catalogs, you get the source. If that source is then used by the next generation to generate their truth, quote unquote truth, as they generate reports and articles and they learn. If the source has been allowed to be manipulated to be wrong, isn't that the easiest way to manipulate an entire group of people going forward? To believe an agenda that you want? And I don't know that I want an agenda that's manipulated like that.
Yeah.
At
what cost do we let something like that happen?
What exactly? What would you consider to be the, I guess, sacred texts or whatever? What would you be afraid that would be tweaked?
I don't know that there's really like a sacred text necessarily, but if you start manipulating data that's within factual books, then maybe you have the other side starting a war.
Like if someone wanted to completely eliminate the fact that the U.S. had Japanese internment camps, that they could.
Yeah.
No, I understand what you mean.
Yeah, talk about a huge thing like that, or Gulf of Tonkin, they bombed us first. The historical text shows us that maybe that wasn't the case.
Yeah, interesting. So thanks for the comment suggestion.
Kony 2012.
I don't know how that. Yeah, well.
The 13th anniversary?
Some of these other ones I want to save for like complete podcasts.
Gotcha.
But
What's the Twitter handle of the person that gave us that last one?
Senor Gay.
Right.
Actually, the Twitter handle is I'm Mr. Gay. He actually also goes by Revulsive. He's actually an awesome guy.
Oh. Okay.
He did the Photoshop job with me and my brother as Thor and Loki.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very clever.
Pretty awesome. Yeah.
Almost too easy, really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Loki's adopted. You know.
Yeah.
I'm not blonde, so.
Yeah.
Those are really the only differences.
Yeah, that's really the only difference between Thor.
Nordic, German.
Have you read Godbomb yet, Joel?
I have not read that.
Ah, damn it. Read Godbomb.
I have so many other comics to read. Give me a break here.
Okay. Like what?
Like, I'm 3 issues behind on Pretty Deadly. I'm 3 issues behind... Well, not 3 issues behind, but on Sex Criminals. That's actually... I'm basically doing whatever I can...
You caught me mid-drink. I'm like,
Basically doing whatever I can to support the family of Matt Fraction and Kelly Sue DeConnick. That's really, you know, they're oh so adorable, really.
Have you read Battle of the Atom?
I'll tell you, I will own up right now. I'm so woefully behind on superhero stuff.
No.
You know, my brother might be the better person to ask that question.
BJ?
Yeah,
No.
Would be totally ineffective on a podcast, but you know,
I mean,
he's deaf. Everybody, so. I mean,
actually, yeah, that's one thing. It's interesting about Joel. I guess we can talk a little bit about you guys. With the exception of one brother, your whole family is deaf.
Correct. Including my stepfather, who was just slowly going deaf.
Is that?
I mean, he's gotten to the point where he can no longer jack the TV up to maximum volume. He now had to concoct a way of putting a wireless headphone system in.
Oh, really?
And putting that over
how
his ears. And,
wow.
you know, he's being somewhat nice and preserving everybody else's hearing while totally obliterating.
Well, he already knows some sign language, so. I mean, it's
in his
like as much as I know, but like you know, he knows some.
Well, you actually know signs. He just came up with it.
That's the like this is pizza.
Yeah, right. Sign language, perfect on an oral medium.
Yeah, well, you know.
For the record, Derek pretended to eat a sandwich.
What is pizza but an open-faced sandwich?
Edible plates, really.
But yeah, no, I always thought that was really interesting.
But kind of to piggyback off of that, I mean, that was one of the first ways that I really connected with my brother was through comics.
Yeah,
because it was an easily digested kind of thing, very visual, and that's I think primarily why my brother leans towards more superhero stuff, and he goes across any of the publishing companies. I mean, he has no alliance towards one of the big two or Image or whatever. I mean, he has his standouts. I mean, he loves Green Lantern, but I think at this point he really loves Jeff Johns. X-Men has always been a strong...
Jeff Johns being the...
Jeff Johns, now the creative director of DC Comics, but one of the long-term writers on Green Lantern, Flash, a few other comics, definitely within DC. Basically brought up the idea of, you know, that stuff we're ignoring in the Silver Age, we can bring back and make cool again. And it hit right at the perfect time because everyone, at least of our age and a little younger, they're all getting to that point of, I really want to itch that nostalgia thing. And and he rubbed that itch in so a good way, made people very excited.
I want to go back to for a second because you talked about some of the podcast, some of the comic books that you were into, and but there's like this whole new sort of I don't want to say renaissance, but this new uprising of all these comic books that are not superhero based.
Yeah,
and it's sort of. Do you think it's to the point where it's like a coming of a new age of comic books? Hi, Paul.
Yeah, I really lose a lot of geek cred because I own 2 comic books. So
You own 2?
Yeah.
Which 2?
The Cryptozoic Man #1, and Avengers Annual #10.
Oh, shit.
The first appearance of Rogue.
Yeah. That's because you really like Rogue.
Yeah, she's my
Even though
favorite comic book character of all the comics I know.
Read comic books.
Yeah, so I lose the geek cred here.
So you're sad that she's potentially been edited out of the next movie.
Yeah, I saw that and it was kind of disappointing.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, just
because
just the sheer scope of the movie that they're looking at based off of the description going, you can't juggle 48 actors and actresses and give everybody their due diligence. Even Joss Whedon couldn't pull that off. Yeah. Regardless of what people may believe. But in terms of this renaissance, resurgence, what have you, it's really, since the boom and bubble burst of the 90s, it was no longer, people got really tired of, okay, we get it, flashy pictures, nice drawings, whatever. What's the story, and...
You know what's really interesting? This is something that I was thinking about earlier today, actually, as I was playing Minecraft. I'll turn this to Paul. So what would you say that superhero movies are about? Like, if you had to sum up what a superhero movie is about, and just a few words to somebody who has never seen a superhero movie, what would you say?
I would say people that are put into a situation that requires them to exceed their normal limits and being able to do that easily and become the pinnacle of whatever they're championing, whether they're...
Okay, so that was actually a really good answer. It was better an answer than I thought you were going to say. No, but I mean, like...
You were prejudged before you spoke.
But no, I mean, like, because they're about, very frequently, just like 2 people beating each other up, essentially. Like, if you want to, like, it's bad guy, good guy, smash, smash, smash. Like, you'd have your Superman figure over here, and then you have your Zod figure over here, and you're like, bam, 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 together. And that's really what the comic book movies are basically at this point. And for the longest time, that always bothered me because I'm like, well, it's not like the comic books, but really, that's exactly what the comic books are.
Oh well,
they're just bam, 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 bam.
Well, that's really what it was, kind of in the 90s, because it got to the point where, I mean, they'd be dumb not to. I mean, there was this whole influx of disposable income coming in. And they had plenty of greedy consumers. It was at the rise of collectability craze. I mean, look at all the goofy stuff that things were collected, and in and of that era, Beanie Babies, Furbies, all that, all that sort of weird stuff, Tamagotchis. And so they just pumped out material, and some people who shouldn't have been necessarily drawing full issues were drawing full issues. They would have been better as a backup or something like that.
Sure.
And writers were just getting stretched because you can only write the same 3 plots over and over again before it gets really, really tired. Mm-hmm. And when the bubble kind of fell on itself, I didn't really notice because I was at the perfect age to experience the bubble for all that it was worth, love the flashy colors and all the pockets and vests and everything else. That's why I kind of bristle when people are like, oh God, the 90s sucked. I'm like, hey, that's where I grew up. Leave my crap alone. Yeah. Stupid person born in the 70s. Shut up, Gen X. Kiss my ass. Sorry, Paul.
That's all right.
Paul was like 2 years older than me.
Yeah. I made the 70s by about 8 months.
Cha-ching.
I always consider you to be more my age. I mean, I guess you are in like a larger scope of things, but like when I think of you as like just slightly older. When you're actually I don't think it would be possible for us to have gone to high school together.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Anyway.
Lost opportunities.
Yeah.
But then things just kind of started to happen where it was like, okay, there's still... So you had all your outliers, all your inflators, everything else, the short sellers and whatnot. They bled off, and you still had your core audience there. And they still wanted material. And so stuff slowly started to happen. And there was a bit of oddly enough, at Image, of all places, because Image created in the 90s with Big Seven of the creators of the time, Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld, Jim Lee, Will Portacio, Mark Silvestri, Jim Valentino. I'm potentially blanking on one other, and Eric Larson.
Like two people that are going to listen to this podcast and be like, I knew all of those names.
Yeah, they're screaming. They're screaming the last one as you're struggling for.
How could you forget Savage Dragon? He's still doing it. You son of a bitch. I prefer my internet to be a little bit more angry and a little less mouth breathing. So I got to give them credit. But they got together, and they were all very well known for their visual styles and, escalating things and whatnot. But then when everything fell off, they were still working on their stuff. Some of them left, whatever. But all of a sudden, they started gathering writers. Just writers that had particular viewpoints, or even better, they were coming up, or they had writers, or artists rather, that did everything. They wrote, drew, they produced their books pretty much whole in hand. And got them out. So, you've got stuff like, you've got works by Brian Michael Bendis.
I like Bendis.
Ed Brubaker. Those are the two that are hitting me most prevalent, because I was listening to Bendis' podcast and I read.
Bendis is a podcast?
Well, he whores out a lot.
Okay. He was just a guest.
He was
that's what we could have guests.
He was on.
Let's not call them whores.
Come on, this week's Whorecast. A little too close to Horcrux.
Whorecast. There's the name.
Whorecast, really?
Whorecast. That sounds like the name of a Conan bad guy.
That sounds.
The evil Lord Whorecast. Wow. Yeah.
I don't know. That sounds like something you put a Horcrux into.
That's how you make a Horcrux, with the Whorecast.
Shake your head all you want. But there's this sense of creators are important and almost celebrated now. Back in the 90s, you wouldn't have really heard of exclusive contracts, and now the big two are doing those.
Well, growing up, I didn't pay attention to who wrote or did anything for any of the comic books that I've read.
Yeah, and I didn't really start to until, oddly enough, till I was just about getting out of it, because I was hitting puberty and, potentially wanted to do things with girls.
And the comics had to go away for that.
Well,
but nowadays,
now it's completely different. Yeah, no, I think that's great.
Yeah, it's basically to the point where if you don't have a wall of bag and boarded books, you're lame.
No, I think it's fantastic, and it makes me sad that it wasn't that way when we were young. I now know personally more, quote unquote, I hate this term so much, nerd girls than I do normal nerds. And I know a lot of nerds.
But do you think that it's genuine? And I'm not talking about the individual, but do you think that it's genuine from the corporate level down?
What do you mean by that?
I'm never going to question the guy that's got his long box full of, Action Comics or, that kind of thing. But do you question the
hipster nerdism?
Not the hipsters necessarily, but I think people walk around now and say, nerds are accepted, everyone loves us now. And I question, do they love us and what we think about, or the fact that we'll go spend $1 billion watching Avengers?
I think that it's the definition of nerd and what is nerdy has maintained the same thing, but the definition of things that are nerdy has not. Does that make sense? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like comic books and Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and all these things that I grew up loving and getting made fun of for loving are now super duper mainstream. But things like particle physics are still super nerdy, and most people, when you start talking to them about string theory or some crap, yeah, exactly, they just die. Like,
but they laugh. But the average person will laugh about it on The Big Bang Theory. And it's like a joke. It's
Well, that's
like,
because it's a laugh track, and they're like, I laugh here.
right, but the question is, like I watch that show, and there's Easter eggs in there for people that pay attention, obviously.
That's the same thing with Futurama.
Yeah, and, I felt like, somebody asked me, do you like The Big Bang Theory? I didn't early on because I was like, I have lived exactly what those guys did, and the laughter was not because I did something funny, but it was because they were making fun of me.
Sure.
So those laugh tracks, when somebody, when they hit a line or they're playing Settlers of Catan, or there was another board game they played, I forget offhand, Talisman, I think.
Oh, Talisman's a good game.
And they talk about that stuff, and the laughter wasn't uplifting, it was down pushing when I lived my experience of the Big Bang Theory.
That's a really interesting point, and particularly that's a really interesting point on that show, and not something that I ever had really considered. Because that's exactly because you're growing up sort of that feeling of being laughed at for those things, as opposed to being laughed because you made a funny joke.
Yeah, and I mean now I like it. It's because you watch it long enough, something like that, and you can say, all right, this isn't my real life diverged from where they're at, and they're still into it. 8, 9 seasons now.
That's crazy. Has it been on the show on the air that long?
7. So they're going into 8
It's still
this
crazy.
year.
Wow. Well, I would really like to see if that show would work without Kelly Cuoco.
I think it would, but you would still need a different every woman in this case, because she's supposed to be the stand-in for the audience kind of thing, and maybe by extension I'm blanking on names.
Which one?
The other blonde.
There's another blonde?
Michelle Rauch? Is that her name?
Yeah.
The Wolowitz's wife.
No, she actually does, because I know that they played at it on one random episode that I saw. She actually does do the voice for Wolowitz's mother too, right?
No, they both have an impression.
That she just has like a
hers is just spot on.
Holy shit.
They did it at Comic-Con, and I don't know if they've done it before. And Chuck Lorre and Bill Prady were on the panel, and they had to have done it before, but the reaction that they got, and I think the season after that was when she started doing it in the show a little more often.
Huh.
Like they had that,
where she actually had the response back.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. I have a real quick side thing on that. Have you been to Comic-Con?
I've never been to Comic-Con.
Have you been to Comic-Con?
I've never been.
How have none of the three of us been to Comic-Con?
There's too many people.
Well, now, but I'm saying
I've been to a semi-major Comic-Con. I've been to Wizard World Chicago.
Well, Wizard World is a completely different animal than...
Well, right, because it's actually more focused on comics and creators than Pop Culture Fest.
Yeah.
I think there's a really easy answer for that, is that we live now in Wisconsin. And I didn't used to live here, but I think you two have been here your whole lives?
Yeah.
So there was a giant convention for us 2.5 hours away. At Gen Con.
Oh.
It's not comics, but some of them, there's comics there.
What do you mean for us?
People like
Nerds.
us, the board games.
No, but the Gen Con was in Wisconsin. Because you grew up in,
I grew up in Michigan, so it was... And I didn't know that Gen Con existed until 97.
Oh, really?
And then,
I went to Gen Con before you, Paul.
That's right. But I've been every year since I learned about it. So it's one of those things that it's like the
amount of nerd dick flying right now.
The yearly pilgrimage, but I've never wanted to go to San Diego Comic-Con because what do they have, 150,000 people now? 120,000?
It's an absurd number.
On a Thursday.
I don't know the numbers, but it's more than the population of the city that we're currently in.
Yeah, and I mean, the generally nerd conventions, the ones that I've been to, the aisles are difficult to navigate. People have their backpacks on. There's a large proportion of dudes that look like me that are a little overweight. And you're trying to move around, and that would be crazy.
Light the air on fire with the BO.
Yeah, it's Gen Con is about and they get what 50,000-ish was last
Gen
year's
Con?
attendance. Individual unique attendance.
I don't really pay attention to the numbers like that.
But it's close. Yeah. And I think that's maybe why, you didn't have to branch out for that, because you have something once a year that's real close to where you are.
But that's a good point, actually. That's probably why I had never been. Because Gen Con was closer, and that was also a nerd outlet for me.
Yeah, it hit the same centers that in your brain that you needed it to.
And that one doesn't feature the same... The thing that San Diego gets a lot of criticism for from the really nerd... The really... hardcore...
The true nerds versus the fake nerds, Paul?
Yes, the
ones... Is that what you're trying to say, the true nerds?
Not the true nerds versus fake nerds.
Fuck those fake nerds. Fake nerd girls suck.
I have no problem with nerd girls at all.
But it's those fake nerd girls.
No, I just... Anytime that somebody likes something, unless I have a real issue with it, I'm going to encourage them to like something, Yeah, if you like murdering people, then I'm probably not going to be on board with that. If that's what you're really nerdy about.
If people were less spurty when they died, I'd be all for it.
Spurty?
But, yeah. Well,
have you seen Dexter? They're spurty.
And I'm not Jackson Pollock.
Oh.
Yeah. But
that'd have been a great episode.
To kind of throw my hat in the ring in terms of how we've arrived at this nerdvana.
Nerdvana. Name of the episode right there. Nerdvana. Maybe it's the name of the whole show, Paul. Maybe.
It could be. Joel's got those ideas.
Anyway, the fact that we've hit this point of almost critical mass regarding being a nerd, being a dork, being a geek, pick your label, run with it, is when we were growing up, enthusiasm was kind of tampered down a little bit. So there were, and the world at that time was in very, very large chunks. So if you were very hyper excited about something that was very small, oddly enough, you stuck out because you would wear that pride so loudly on your chest and be like, and you'd also be ashamed of it if you didn't feel comfortable about it. If you were a comic book nerd, or if you were a D&D dork, or a gaming geek, whatever, you would feel when you were with your tribe, you felt great, and then once you kind of just stray out a little bit, you felt a little off. But now everything is so nicheified and everything is so fragmented that everyone has their pocket enthusiasms that they can celebrate so loudly, and they can mingle together, and you can all enjoy it. And because before you couldn't, because it's like, oh, comics, you're weird. But now it's comics, oh, yeah, because I also like this particular thing. I'm very, because I don't view geek, dork, nerd as anything other than earned prideful enthusiasm towards whatever. I mean, I'm a multi-level nerd on so many different things. I often don't make my dice checks, but they still pan out. And you could say, I mean, and there are ways to make it cute and funny. I mean, someone who's an alcoholic, they're a beer nerd.
Sure, or I think the big one that people overlook a lot is sports fans.
Yes,
they're.
It's gonna be an episode.
Yeah, they're really.
I do enjoy how these same people who are really hardcore up in arms about fantasy football, the basically a lot of the jocular or jock mentality guys. No offense to Derek here.
Oh my jock! Go ahead.
I'm preemptively apologizing.
Oh,
here it comes.
Here's the reach around ball hit. It's a thing in sport I saw. Where, they wanted to be something, and maybe they failed at it, but they could focus on fantasy football, and they get really engaged and energetic about that, and it's all about charts and graphs and numbers and stats and making sure that this is equal to that, and everything is all well and good. The same exact shit that they would make fun of the D&D dorks for when they were in high school.
Absolutely.
Makes no fuck sense to me whatsoever, but hooray for them, they have an outlet.
No, that's going to be a Declarations episode, though.
Okay.
It's in the works. It's in the plan. I've got bad news, gentlemen.
Shit.
Nerdvana,
yeah,
already a board game store, a blog, and a podcast, as well as part of a episode of Big Bang Theory.
I wouldn't.
The Nerdvana Annihilation.
I was gonna say that phrase is not unique enough.
Yeah, well, I was hoping. We should be a new project that I'm working on with some YouTuber folk that I know. It's going to be called Vlogalog. Instead of like dialogue, Vlogalog.
I gotcha. Yeah.
It wasn't taken. We're like, all right, that's amazing.
Well,
they haven't gotten to the V's yet.
Apparently.
They're still stuck on the Q's because there's
Are
a
you
lot
sure?
of Q domains.
I mean, you might want to check some...
No, we've got it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, no, it's exciting.
I'm just saying, you might want to check some Cthulhu Mythos stuff. That might be an elder one.
Nah, what, the Vlogalog?
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Vloga, comma, or apostrophe, rather.
Yeah, anyway, I forgot what we were talking about. Something about...
Just the comparison of the football.
No, like before that. I was going before that.
Nicheified.
I think
it's gotten smaller.
I think it has, in a way, and the thing is that you can connect. Whereas before you just had to take who was around you and deal with that, is that you can connect now with the people that do the exact thing that you do all over the world.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
You know, if you play D&D or if you play Magic, in most places in the world, you can find somebody that does what you do within a couple of hours of where you are.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And it's so much more open that you can do, that you have a way to connect with people.
That's really interesting. Do you think that's why, I'll say, nerd culture has become more mainstream? Because nerds can kind of band together like that?
I don't think it's necessarily stuff becoming mainstream. For me, anyway, it's the mainstream has become more diffuse. I mean, it's just spread out to so many things now. Instead of you want to put your picket on the mainstream, tether it, and follow it to glory, whatever that particular glory may be. I think it's changed in some way where it's just spread out so much where it's like everything is being shotgunned and sprayed down, where it's like, yeah, I want to watch a show about the struggles and trials of a midget family raising normal-sized kids. Or,
is that a show?
It kind of is.
That's what you got.
Or, and it's cliche to do it now, I want to watch a show about, people who created a duck calling fortune and...
Or overweight child pageant.
Yeah.
Superstar.
But is it wrong for us? Because the way that you guys said that, and I'm guilty of it too, you kind of sounds judgy when you say, like, I can't believe you're watching that. But what's the difference between somebody watching that likes that, and us doing a podcast, or reading a book, or playing online video games?
Because I would like to think that our podcast is going to enrich people's lives, Paul. And I don't think that somebody watching Honey Boo Boo is going to enrich them.
Wow, get off your high horse, dude.
Well, I mean, I would like for it to happen. I'm not saying that it's going to.
I think what that is, I think it's your response to somebody not watching that or someone not enjoying that. It's been more common, at least in my experience, more common lately, where if you say that you are not into things, they go, "What? What is wrong with you?
True.
You are deficient. I can't believe you haven't read that Thor book. What's wrong with you? You're slow."
I can't believe you haven't read that Thor book. Let's be honest.
You're a jackass.
But no, that's a very good point. Like, I was talking to my older brother, and we were talking about Walking Dead and trying to get my parents into Walking Dead, and because I think particularly
You're talking about the show, not actually Walking Dead.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
Because that's very
It'd
rude.
be nice to have them around for a while.
Oh, that's good.
No, we were trying to talk to them about getting them into Walking Dead and convince my mom to watch it, because she's like, "No, I don't really like zombies that much." And I'm like, "No, it's not about zombies. It's like a post-apocalyptic survival drama." And
the good thing is, it repeats itself every season and a half.
That's another podcast altogether. So then I was like, yeah, and like Game of Thrones, like expecting my brother to be like, "Yes, and Game of Thrones, you should also watch that too, Mom." And he was just like, "Yeah, no, I hadn't seen that." And I'm like, "Dude, what's wrong with you?" My brother, who had gotten me into all of these things that I'm into, basically, he's the person who exposed me to Dungeons & Dragons and Magic and my nerddom, really.
Well, he has something else to nerd out about. His child.
Well, I know, I understand that, but just the idea that you were talking about, how getting outraged that someone's not into something. That's exactly what I had experienced over Christmas here. My brother's like, no, I hadn't seen Game of Thrones, I haven't really read it or anything, and I'm like, what's wrong with you? You have no idea how much you'd like this show.
So I want to loop back to one thing just real quick. The idea, we were talking about the different shows, the evidently going after TLC and A&E shows there.
You know what the really irritating thing for me is? I'm going to interrupt you. TLC, the fucking Learning Channel. We swear on this podcast now. It's called the Learning Channel. It's got Honey Boo Boo. That's the irritating.
TLC?
But yeah, it's FTLC.
TFL?
Because they're not.
TLC.
They're certainly not promoting learning.
You are learning something. How much did you know about child pageants prior to that show existing? That one and the predecessor, Toddlers and Tiaras. How much did you honestly know about it?
I didn't even know the predecessor was Toddlers and Tiaras, Paul.
Yeah.
Is that like the Honey Boo Boo was on Toddlers and Tiaras?
Yes.
And they were like, oh, this is the one that we need to have her own show.
Yes.
Ugh. Okay.
So you are learning something about that. But your reaction to that, how is that any different than a jock that threw you into the dumpster or made fun of you for having dice with more than 6 sides, or the superheroes and the comic books? How are you any different from that person when you go after people that watch those shows now?
He uses his inhaler before he beats them up?
I understand what your point is, but I mean, I consider that to be intellectually devoid on a channel that is supposed to be anything but, where the things that I got made fun of was for being, quote unquote, intellectual or smart or nerdy.
Right, but how many times did you say, I just wish people would understand it, or, why do people do this to me? I don't get it. It doesn't matter whether there's...
You're right, Paul. I'm a terrible person. Is that what you want me to say?
No, it's not just you, but I think it's a lot of people, and especially in this nerd subculture, it's people that wanted to have what they liked be accepted, deliberately going out of their way to not accept other people for what they like, if it doesn't match up on the same line. So, you might have somebody that, well, I love Spider-Man and this guy loves Batman. They'll probably get along.
Or like David Tennant versus Matt Smith.
Yeah, but...
No contest.
The Batman person with the Honey Boo Boo lover, they're not going to cross... The likelihood of the crossover, there's potential for problem there. And I think that if this subculture could step back a little bit and be a little bit more accepting of what other people are and what they like.
Now nerds are
I'm just sorry. I'm sorry.
Actually, I agree with that.
The Batman
there's
person
a
would be
little
confused.
there's a little bit of elitism, and has always been in nerd culture.
Read internet comments.
Why?
Read my comments.
Because you get a slice of a portion of what American reality is. You have to speak with perfect grammar. You have to be an amazing typist, and everything has to be correct for you to have an internet point.
For those who monitor that particular thing.
Sure, but how many times do you see that in the comments where it's, if you have a comma out of place, well, fuck your post. I didn't read it because...
And I guarantee the same people who are grammar Nazis, grammar bananas, whatever.
Yeah. Declarations.
Yeah. Those same people where I'm sure if you listen to them speak, they've got participles dangling all over the place. They're splitting their infinitives. They probably don't even realize that to boldly go is a split infinitive. People don't talk the way they write. I mean, if people want to try and control internet comments, be my guest. You be that little Dutch boy, plug up those dikes. But you're going to go crazy doing it. And I don't think that... I think that's not necessarily a... no, I'm going to talk myself into actually kind of somewhat agreeing with it. And
my work is done.
Well, in terms of people who actively seek to control that type of discourse. It's like, oh, you forgot your semicolon. People who do that sort of thing, they're just seeking some sort of control. I mean, and it's quite possible that they don't have that particular control in their life. For all we know, they work at a pickle factory pushing a button 12 hours a day, and they want something more than that, and they want to be able to control that environment a little bit better, so they can by going, ha-ha, you didn't use an apostrophe.
But there's an interesting thing that happens on the internet, and there's an old saying that if you
I swear to God, if you segue into bestiality,
no. If you evoke Hitler in an argument, then you have lost.
It's called Godwin's Law.
Yes. I think that on the internet, if you criticize the person who you're arguing with grammar, then you have lost the argument. You're done. You're no longer talking. You're no longer discussing the argument.
Yeah.
But we've talked about some of the great things that the internet has brought us. The ability to connect with people, to deep dive into things that we really like.
To publish an hour's worth of dialogue. People listen to it.
Yeah. And
hopefully.
I think that with some of those mediums, why is there the nerd rage? Why do you have to have the nerd rage when you can go out and have the nerdvana? When you can go out and find exactly what you want to deal with people that speak your language, understand what you're doing. You don't have to explain it to anyone.
What area of nerd rage are you talking about?
I think there's a lot of nerd rage.
I can't believe...
I can't believe you watch this show.
Okay.
I can't believe you listen to this band. I can't believe that you didn't see this movie.
It'd be like someone who really likes music and say they like a lot of progressive rock bands that like say they really like King Crimson, but they also really like Nickelback a lot. What's wrong with you? I thought you liked music.
Yeah. See, that's elitism, that's snobbery, that's basically wanting to have your opinion on everybody else's. You want people to think what you believe, and and I'm a horrible fan when it comes to that. I don't get butthurt when another Star Wars revision comes out, or if a particular superhero movie comes out and they didn't match beat for beat this particular thing that happened in a comic that maybe 30,000 people read. I don't get up in arms about that, because when I go out and actively seek entertainment, that's all I ask for. I just want to be entertained. And while it may be inspired by, based on, supported by something that I grew up enjoying the living hell out of in my youth, as it were, I'm not beholden to it, because I believe that everything is cyclical and every generation has their right to a particular type of story. And if in this age that we're kind of living in now, it's more of a visual storytelling, then fine. Let them have their cake, let them eat it, let them get the type 2 diabetes and enjoy themselves.
So you're the silent majority of this culture that is just accepting of it and just saying, okay, this, and maybe this
I don't think I'm in a majority. I often feel that I'm silent because I'm biting my tongue, because it's just I want to sit there and go, stop that. No, you're doing more harm than good by getting so outraged and so angry about someone not sharing your passion. It's like, instead of getting angry, figure out why. Why didn't they enjoy that? And then you can have a discussion based off of that. And maybe, just maybe, you can, work your little bit of magic on them, and they can come back around to maybe try it again in a different medium, because we have different introduction vectors for a whole lot of nerd things.
But I think you are in the majority.
End quote.
Because I think the majority of this culture thinks like that. They can accept that there's 52 different universes, and in this universe, the Walking Dead goes down this storyline, and in a different universe, it goes down the comic book storyline. Mm-hmm. So you have the comic versus the TV. And I think a lot of people accept that, but I think there's a lot of folks, still a minority, but I think there's a lot of folks that could do themselves better if they were as accepting of other people's enjoyment, the things that they're passionate about, the things that they like, as they want people to be accepting of theirs.
Sure. No, that's an absolutely great point. It's the you saw the Desolation of Smaug, yeah. Yeah, it was, it wasn't as good as the book, but it's pretty good. It was a good movie. Like, there's always that wasn't as good as the blank book, usually book.
Stroking the air at this point.
But to spin back to what you were saying with the Nerd Girls thing, I don't care if somebody if they're nerdy about knitting, or if they're nerdy about, makeup application, or
some days I get so excited about macrame, it's not even funny.
Right, and those are
cross-stitching,
not inclusive examples, but they're two ideals that a lot of people can go different ways on. You don't have to be somebody with 140 IQ and wearing the 3-button sweater and those kind of things to be a nerd. You can be active in sports. You can be active in your community. You can have a family, and you can have lots of friends and be social. And I mean, we all know a dude that is pretty active, big nerd. You would never know he's a nerd because he doesn't have to wear it on his sleeve. That's not what defines him. He is him.
He's a city alderman.
Yeah.
He's in politics. And I remember talking to him years ago and being like, hey, and like he basically has his life planned out. He's like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and then about here, I'm going to start my political career, and he's following it, and it's great.
But you wouldn't know it because being a nerd doesn't define him. It's a part of him. And I think a lot of folks, and myself included at some points, being a nerd was what defined me.
Sure.
And now I've just made it a part of me.
Interesting.
And not enough, and I'm going to be judgmental in this, not enough people have gotten to that point. And I think the loud minority, anytime they see something of theirs that they so dearly love, misrepresented in their view, I think it's because maybe some part of their brain thinks they're being made fun of again. And it's like...
Yeah.
It's like, how dare you? No, that's not... You guys stuck. I'm taking my toys. I'm going home. If you can get to that point of, yeah, I'm a nerd, but I'm also so many other things. Being a nerd I'm a nerd infusion, if you will, on just carrying that with you instead of, it's one of many patches I wear, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, with that, we're at an hour, and that's about what I wanted to cut the first episode to. So if you're still listening, thank you. There'll be plenty more.
You've made it through so many pieces of this.
We covered a lot. I don't even know what to call this episode. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we should have
controlled outrage,
front-ended more nerdery, and then less politics.
Well, this was the absolute definition of nerdery. We dissected the actual definition of nerdery and how it implements in society today. You don't get much more nerdy than that.
Thank you for listening to the Declarable Podcast. If you are interested in sponsoring the show, please send an email to declarations@gmail.com. That's DKlarations@gmail.com.